For me, knowing whether a game is working is not that different from knowing whether a movie is working or a piece of music is working. I have a friend who's a TV writer, a former music critic, and he said, and can write very highfalutin about anything, but he says it's like you always have to remember that it's about shaking your ass, right? And if you forget that, then you sort of become jazz or classical music where you're divorced from the experience of the dance floor. So you feel it, right? Like you feel something, and that game could be hard, it could be easy, it could be something that you've played 10 times before, it could be something you've never played before, and sometimes it takes longer. I'll definitely give that. There's some games like where they don't necessarily reveal themselves entirely. Like, a game that I thought was one of the most amazing games of the PlayStation 2 generation, some people disagreed, was Manhunt from Rockstar. And the thing is, for the first... Sorry, I gotta clear something out of my eye. For the first 3-4 levels of Manhunt, all you had access to was melee weapons. So a piece of wire, a broken bottle, a plastic bag, and you're killing people in these really gruesome ways, baseball bat, that kind of stuff. But around the level 3 or 4, you get your first ranged weapon, which is a nail gun. And then all of a sudden, the palette of how you can kill opens up, right? And so now it really is, how do you want to play? You're not forced to get up close anymore. You can kill from a distance, you can mix it up, you can get yourself out of trouble in a way you couldn't before, and all those things. And I would tell people who would stall out around level 2 or 3, I'd say you have to keep playing, you have to get to this point, because once you get to this point, it gets special. And so that's what we look for. The challenge is that because games are mechanical, because they're visual and all these other things, as a consultant, just as a game developer, you're playing games that are varying degrees of broken. So it could be progression stopping bugs. It could be, UI that's missing, all of these elements that are there. So sometimes you have to fill it in. Sometimes you have to sort of imagine this kind of stuff. But the best games reveal themselves. I know them when I get them, and not to say that everyone's going to have the same reaction, but and conversely, when something's not working, then the challenge is sort of to explain and break down how it's not working, right? And a lot of times it involves comparisons to other games, right? And so fortunately, depending on the medium, depending on the genre, if it's melee combat games, it might be God of War or Batman. If it's first-person shooters, it might be Halo or Grand Theft Auto. It might be Halo, or it might be Call of Duty. If it's a platforming kind of action game, it might be Uncharted, or it might be Mario. So there are a whole bunch of games you can sort of draw on. The thing I will say is about games that aren't working, or they're sort of broken, or something's really wrong, the more experience we have with those games as consultants or players, the more I understand and appreciate the games that do work. You really start to see the subtleties.